Have you ever felt like you're caught in this strange paradox? I mean, we have more time management tools, more tech than ever before, right? Calendars, apps, little computers in our pockets. And yet, somehow, we always seem to be behind. We're working longer, moving faster, but never really catching up.
It's such a common feeling, isn't it? That stress level seems higher than ever, despite all this stuff meant to help.
Exactly. Feels like running on a treadmill.
Yeah, you're putting in the effort, but the finish line just keeps shifting. And the frustrating thing we're going to dive into today, the sort of provocative claim, is that maybe the reason for this is, well, maybe everything you thought you knew about time management is wrong.
Okay, that's a big statement, everything. I'm really interested to hear how you unpack that. If the old ways are failing, what's the mission here? What are we trying to figure out in this deep dive?
Well, our mission is to look at why those traditional ideas fall short. We want to explore a new way of thinking, a different paradigm, and really unpack how you can genuinely multiply your time based on the insights in our source material.
Multiply time.
Okay.
And here's a really interesting angle. It's not just logical. It's not just systems and apps. It turns out that modern time management, or maybe self-management, is deeply emotional. Things like guilt, anxiety, they're huge drivers.
That emotional piece feels really true. Can you give us an example? Like, how does that actually play out?
Yeah, it's fascinating how feelings can dictate where our time goes, often more than any to-do list. The source material uses this really powerful personal story to illustrate it. Picture this. A little 2-year-old girl, Haven, curly brown hair, big brown eyes. She runs down the hall and just latches onto her dad's leg. He's supposed to be leaving for this important work retreat. And she looks up, tears starting, and says, "No, Daddy, please. No work today. No work, Daddy."
Oh, wow. Right in the heartstrings. So what was the realization for him in that moment?
It hit him hard. All the stuff we hear about time management, the tips, tools, calendars, apps, it all seems logical, right?
But it's profoundly emotional. That feeling of guilt or fear, worry, anxiety, frustration. Those feelings often steer the ship just as much, maybe more, than any rational plan.
So if emotions are that central, can we actually manage time? The source material makes this really interesting point. There is no such thing as time management. Time just marches on, right?
Exactly. It keeps going whether we like it or not.
What we can manage, though, is ourselves. So the idea becomes there is only self-management. That feels like a really fundamental shift.
It is foundational, absolutely. Switching from time management to self-management changes the whole game.
So if we're managing ourselves, how does that change how we even think about our tasks? And where did this whole time management idea come from anyway? Historically.
Right. Well, to put it in context, the first real era of time management thinking kicked off, late 50s, 60s, tied to the Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
And this was really one-dimensional thinking. It was all about efficiency. The logic was simple. If we get tools and tech to do things faster, we'll save time.
Makes sense on the surface.
It does. But we see the limitation now, don't we? We all carry these super powerful mini computers, and we're still feeling behind. It's like that hamster wheel you mentioned, lots of speed, not much progress.
So efficiency was era 1. What was era 2? How did the thinking evolve?
Era 2 came along, really shaped by Dr. Stephen Covey in the late 80s. This introduced two-dimensional thinking. He gave us the famous time management matrix, urgency versus importance.
Ah, yes. The 4 quadrants. Important, urgent, important, not urgent.
Exactly. And the benefit was huge. It gave us a system to score tasks, prioritize them, focus on what matters most. It's been the dominant way of thinking for decades. And look, prioritizing is valuable.
It absolutely is. We talk about getting your priorities straight all the time. But here's the catch, and this is crucial. Prioritizing doesn't actually create more time.
Right.
All it really does is take, say, item 7 on your list and bump it up to number 1, which is good for item 7, but it doesn't magically give you more bandwidth for items 2 through 6 or 8 through 10.
Precisely. So if efficiency is the hamster wheel, prioritization is kind of like juggling or borrowing time from one place to pay another. You're just shifting things around.
Which leads to that feeling you described, like we're all these juggling hamsters just sprinting towards some kind of inevitable crash landing.
Yeah, that image kind of sums it up, doesn't it?
It really does. And the conclusion from all this seems pretty stark. You cannot solve today's time management problems with yesterday's time management thinking. The old models just aren't cutting it anymore.
Exactly. Which brings us to where things get really interesting. We're starting to see a new kind of thinker emerge, someone the source material calls a multiplier.
A multiplier, okay.
And these people seem to operate using what's described as three-dimensional thinking.
3 dimensions. So we had efficiency, then urgency and importance.
What's the third dimension?
The third dimension is significance.
Significance. Yeah. So urgency is about how soon something matters. Importance is how much it matters. Significance adds this crucial third question. How long is it going to matter? It's a completely different action.
Okay, how long it's going to matter. So instead of just asking, what's the most important thing I could do today, which is like the classic to-do list question,
Right.
a multiplier asks something different.
They ask, what can I do today that would make tomorrow better? Or even, what can I do right now that improves the future? They're constantly running that significance calculation.
That really reframes things. So multiplying time isn't some magic trick to get more than 24 hours.
No, we all have the same 440 minutes, 86,400 seconds. The issue is thinking only within that daily box.
Right.
The core idea is this. You multiply your time by giving yourself the emotional permission to spend time on things today that give you more time tomorrow. It's that significance calculation coupled with the permission that changes everything.
Emotional permission. I like that. It ties back to the self-management idea you mentioned earlier. Okay, so how do these multipliers actually put this into practice? Is there a strategy or a tool they use?
There is. It's visualized as the focus funnel. Think of it as a mental model or a filter system for how multipliers evaluate tasks.
A funnel, okay.
Tasks go in the top, and you guide them through a series of questions, these filters. The goal is to figure out the absolute best use of your time, ensuring only the really essential stuff makes it all the way through. This is why some people seem to get these huge exponential results, while others are just making steady linear progress.
Got it. So what's the very first filter? What's the first question a task faces when it enters this focus funnel?
The first question is simple but powerful. Can I eliminate this? Is it even worth doing?
Eliminate. Straight off the bat.
Yeah, and this is a huge paradigm shift because next generation time management or self-management, it's actually much more about what you don't do than what you do.
More about what you don't do.
Exactly. There's this idea that perfection is achieved not only when nothing more can be added, but when nothing more can be taken away. So this first step is about giving yourself the permission to ignore things, to decide, maybe perfection here means subtraction, not addition.
Logically, that makes sense. But actually doing it, ignoring tasks, saying no, that feels really hard for a lot of people. There's that guilt factor again, right? That pressure to say yes.
Oh, absolutely. That's the emotional hurdle. But the insight here is, look, trying to go through life never saying no is impossible. It's futile.
Right.
Because think about it. Anytime you say yes to one thing, you are, by definition, saying no to literally everything else you could have been doing in that moment.
That's true. You're always saying no to something.
You are always saying no. So the skill is getting intentional about what you say no to. Eliminating the non-essential today frees up time tomorrow. That's multiplying time.
Okay, eliminate first. Makes sense. If you can't eliminate a task, what's the next filter in the funnel?
The next question is, can I automate this task?
Automate. Oh.
The thinking here is, anything I create a process for today saves me time tomorrow. A classic example is like online bill pay.
Right. Takes time up front to set up.
Exactly. Maybe you feel like, I don't have 2 hours to set all that up. And even if you did, it doesn't feel like a fun way to spend it.
Definitely not.
But a multiplier thinks differently. They think, okay, if setting this up saves me, say, 30 minutes a month on paying bills, investing those 2 hours up front means I break even in just 4 months.
And after that, every single month, you're getting a return on time invested. RDI, I like that.
RDI, exactly. It's a fantastic metric. Automation is to your time what compounding interest is to your money.
Good analogy.
Just like compounding interest makes money grow into more money, automation makes time grow into more time. Multipliers think about time, like financially savvy people think about money. They're willing to invest time now through automation for a bigger payoff later. It's that permission to invest.
That's a powerful way to frame it. But what if something isn't easily automated? Like if it involves a lot of human judgment or changes constantly, does RTI still apply?
That's a good question. The key is to look for any part of a task that can be systemized. Even if you can't fully automate the whole thing, maybe you can standardize the inputs or create a checklist to reduce decision fatigue. Any step that saves future effort can yield a positive ROTI.
Okay, so if you can't eliminate it, and you can't automate it. What's next?
Then you ask the third question, can it be delegated? Can I teach someone else how to do this?
Delegation. Okay, this is where a lot of people get stuck, right? That feeling of, but they just won't do it as well as I can.
That is the classic obstacle. They can't do it as well as me. Or it's faster if I just do it myself.
Right, the short-term thinking trap.
Exactly. And this is where that third dimension's significance really changes the game. Because if you're thinking long-term, thinking about significance, you can give yourself what the source calls the permission of imperfect.
Permission of imperfect. I like that too.
Yeah, allow it to be imperfect for a little while. Because if you invest the time to train someone, over time, they will get better. They'll likely master it, just like you did. And then you freed up your time permanently. The source material actually shares this incredibly moving personal story that illustrates just how far delegation can go.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned a story earlier. Let's hear it.
Okay, so picture this. The author, Rory, is 7 years old. He asks his single mom, "Do I have a dad?" Now, his mom had him when she was young, went through a couple of divorces, including from Rory's biological dad just 6 months after he was born. She'd basically decided, understandably perhaps, that's it, no more men in my life.
Tough situation.
Very. But Rory really wanted a dad. And one day, his mom, probably out of sheer exasperation, says to him, "Look, if you want a dad so badly, why don't you go out and find yourself a good dad?"
Wow, okay. That's quite a task to delegate to a 7-year-old. What did he do?
Well, it sounds crazy, right? But it just so happened it was his first day at a new Shaolin Kung Fu center. And because of scheduling, he ends up in the adult class. And he gets paired up with this guy who looks, frankly, kind of scary. Long hair, tattoos, leather jacket, rides a motorcycle. His name was Kevin.
Oh, boy.
But Kevin turns out to be incredibly nice. He starts giving Rory rides home. Then he starts coming over on weekends so they can practice their Kung Fu forms together. Then the three of them, Rory, his mom, and Kevin, start going to the movies.
Things are developing.
They really are. Fast forward a bit, Kevin and Rory actually earn their black belts together when Rory is 10. 2 weeks after that, Kevin and Rory's mom get married.
Wow.
And it doesn't stop there. A couple of years later, Kevin officially adopts Rory. And at the time the source material was written, they'd been married for 20 years.
That is an absolutely incredible story. Just amazing.
Isn't it? And the punchline, the reason for sharing it in this context, is simple but profound. The point of that story is that you can delegate anything.
Wow. Yeah. If you can delegate finding a father and husband, maybe delegating that report isn't so impossible after all. It really drives home the power of that long-term significance perspective.
It really does. Okay, so we've gone through eliminate, automate, delegate. If a task makes it past all those filters, it drops out the bottom of the funnel.
Right.
And now there's really only one decision point left. You ask, should I do this task now? Must it be done now? Or can it wait until later?
Okay. And if the answer is yes, it has to be done now.
Then that's the time to concentrate. This is where focus comes in. Give yourself permission to protect your time, eliminate distractions, and just get it done. This part isn't radically new, maybe, but it's still essential.
Makes sense. But what if the answer is no? It actually can wait.
Now that is step 5, procrastinate on purpose.
Procrastinate on purpose. Okay, that sounds counterintuitive. Isn't procrastination bad?
Well, that kind of procrastination, the waiting to do something we know we should be doing just because we don't feel like doing it, yes, that's terrible. That's a killer of success, as the source says.
Right, we all know that feeling.
But this is different. This is consciously deciding now is not the right time for this task. It's not gone forever. It goes back into the funnel later to be reevaluated.
So what happens to tasks you purposefully procrastinate on?
Often, really interesting things happen. If something can keep waiting, maybe you finally build the courage to just eliminate it altogether. Or you figure out a way to automate part of it. Or someone else steps up and you realize you can delegate it. Or eventually, its time comes, it becomes significant enough that you do concentrate on it.
So it's not avoidance, it's strategic waiting.
Exactly. It's patience. The source calls it a virtue, even in art form. It's the patience to intentionally put off the less significant things like, feeling you have to check email every 5 minutes so you can focus on what truly matters.
Okay, that distinction between bad procrastination and purposeful procrastination or patience is really key.
It's huge. So let's just circle back and really land the core principle of this whole deep dive.
Yeah, let's recap.
You multiply your time by giving yourself the emotional permission to spend time on things today that create more time tomorrow. It's all about that future investment mindset. driven by significance.
It really is a fundamental shift, isn't it? Moving beyond just managing the clock, managing the minutes, to actually multiplying your potential, your impact. And, connecting this to the bigger picture, it goes beyond just being more productive at work.
Absolutely.
There's a fascinating connection made in the source. Regardless of your specific spiritual beliefs, think about Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. In the Bible, the very first command God gives to humanity, after creating this perfect world and making us in his image, it wasn't have no other gods. It wasn't even love your neighbor. The first command was be fruitful and multiply.
That's really interesting. Be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah, and the point isn't necessarily theological here, but about tapping into that deep human drive, this impulse for growth, for impact, for creating something that lasts beyond ourselves.
So multiplying time isn't just about checking off more tasks. It's about creating value, creating legacy, freeing yourself up for the things that have enduring significance.
Exactly. So as you, the listener, think about all this, maybe the question to ask yourself is, what's one specific significant thing you could do today? Maybe something you've been putting off because it takes time up front that would genuinely create more time or better opportunities for you tomorrow.
Yeah, what could you eliminate? What could you automate? What could you delegate, even if imperfectly at first? Or what could you purposefully procrastinate on to make space for something truly significant? That's the multiplier's way of thinking.